Another week, another run without any new major Nintendo or gaming news. Pretty unfortunate, pretty common, something that I think we've all gotten pretty used to this year, and especially here in the back half of the year. And so, of course, that means with not a whole lot of news to actually talk about, I have yet another reason to talk to you and speculate with you a little bit about what might happen for Nintendo's holiday. A lot of this conversation is obviously born out of the fact that we only just got Pikmin 3 Deluxe announced for the Nintendo Switch, and while that's exciting in some ways and disappointing in others, it does become the only major fall game for the Nintendo Switch that we know of from Nintendo. Yes, there are some third-party games. We're still waiting to understand, the same 3 games we keep talking about. Well, I guess the same 4 games, to be fair. You've got your No More Heroes 3, your Bayonetta 3, your Bravely Default, and then, of course, the elusive Doom Eternal. What's happening with the Switch version of that game? Nobody knows. Maybe that game isn't even coming out in 2020. Maybe that game isn't even coming out at all. I want to still believe the game is going to still come to the Switch. I think that Bethesda and Nintendo know that they really need to deliver that game. But for right now, the mystery remains, and so all of those games, yes, they're third-party games that all or some may make it into the back half of the year. But as far as Nintendo goes, we know what the whole year has been. It's been slow. Paper Mario came out last month. We're getting Pikmin 3 on October 30th. That's a pretty big gap in time between, July 17th and October 30th. And are we going to see a September game? Maybe, maybe not. Are we getting anything major from Nintendo for the November Black Friday shopping season to combat the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X? Does Pikmin 3 let us know if we should or should not expect those things? And I kind of think that it does. This came up a little bit on my most recent live stream as well, and I did want to throw a big chunk of my opinion here into this video for you guys. I think that Pikmin 3 is potentially a little bit of a window or a glimpse into what might be happening in the back half of the year for Nintendo. And I don't necessarily think it's the best information. Now, I am only speculating here in this video. I am only theorizing. I am only guessing. Okay, and you already know that I've had a pretty optimistic outlook for Nintendo's holiday. But that was before Pikmin 3 came along, and it didn't shatter my optimism, but it has maybe forced me to readjust some of my optimism a little bit because I didn't see it happening the way it did and releasing in the time it did, and it does kind of change things. Because to me, Pikmin 3 coming out on October 30th, which you could argue is, somehow kind of like the dead middle of the back half of the year, kind of like the dead middle of the fall holiday shopping season, I feel like that game and being a Wii U port kind of helps inform what we might expect for September or what we might expect for November. The month right before the release and the month right after the release. And at this point, being here in the first half of August, I feel like if they're going to release anything in September, they probably would have already showed us, okay? I still do want to believe in an August Nintendo Direct. I mean, there's a lot of rumors going on about that. I made a video theorizing how this would be the last opportunity for Nintendo to talk to us about 2020 games, and I still think that there's a chance that happens, but are we going to get anything major and significant from an August Direct that would be releasing the following month in September? It's tough for me to think that that could be the case. If we didn't have Pikmin 3 randomly announced, not in a Nintendo Direct, by the way, and to come out at the end of October, then maybe something could still happen there. But I feel like choosing a game that is only a port from the Wii U to release in October, it's not even a huge game. It's just a Wii U port game. I feel like that shows us that maybe they don't have anything else huge for the rest of the year, because that could have been the ideal time to release your biggest game of the holiday. In fact, that is exactly what Nintendo did in 2017, because that is the exact date that Super Mario Odyssey released, was October 30th in 2017. Now we have Pikmin 3 falling on that same date several years later, and Pikmin 3, I like it way more than I like Super Mario Odyssey. Okay, you guys can throw me under the bus for that one if you want. But I think Pikmin 3 is a far superior game to Super Mario Odyssey. However, it is not as big of a game. It is not as popular of a game. Of course, a brand new Mario game is going to be way more popular and successful and critically acclaimed than a Pikmin game. Like, I'm fine with it. I can admit it, even though I prefer Pikmin to Mario Odyssey. But if they're going to take that slot and give it to a smaller tier Wii U port, it makes you wonder, why wouldn't they have done that with whatever big game that we still think they might have? Like, if we want to believe something huge like a Breath of the Wild 2, or even a Pikmin 4, or even a new Mario game, like whatever else they might want to do, why wouldn't they have chosen that time frame for their game? They didn't. They chose the Wii U port. And September becomes strange too, because, you know, even if we get this August Nintendo Direct, they might even have a couple of things to drop in September, but is it going to be anything super significant? I don't think so, because I think August is way too close to September to do so. There is a case to be made for the Super Mario remasters that we have been talking about all year, and we all want to believe in, and here we are, we're in the third quarter of the year, and we still haven't seen these things. So it just feels really strange for me to want to put my faith in those games. But what I will say is, if those are real, and if an August Nintendo Direct happens, I do kind of think that Super Mario Remasters announced in an August Direct to release in September could happen. And to me, those accomplish basically two opposite things. They become a very exciting and probably very high-selling release of games, absolutely, but they also become less exciting in the sense that they're not going to be brand new games. They're going to be more ports or maybe even remasters of older games, and as exciting as that is, a Pikmin 3, a Super Mario Galaxy, whatever, it's not the same as a new game. We'd all rather have Pikmin 4. We'd all rather have Super Mario Odyssey 2, or the next Mario. We'd all rather have Breath of the Wild 2. Like, we want those things more than we want old games. You know, it was great getting Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition this year. I loved that game. I loved the original. I loved the remaster. But that's all it was. It was a game that I played 8 years ago here in the United States. And so September, which could have been a great time for a big Nintendo release, I feel like we have to kind of remove it from options, because even if the best thing we get is the Mario remasters, I don't think that they truly accomplish a slam-bang mega hit for the holiday, and nothing on par that can really compete with new consoles from the other guys. But of course, that brings me to November, the month that we assume those consoles would probably launch, the PS5 and Series X, and that also makes us wonder, okay, well, what about the month after October, after Pikmin 3's release? Does that become the big showdown month that Nintendo wants to plant their flag in? And even though we don't know what game it would be, is that the month where they want to say, here's our big game, here's our competition to the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, look out everybody, we're Nintendo and we care about 2020. Is that actually going to happen this year? And again, I think it is certainly possible, but I'm less confident in it after the announcement of Pikmin 3. And it's so unfortunate, because I love Pikmin 3 so much. Like I said, it's like, to me, it's like a perfect game. And I'm very excited it's getting a new life on the Switch. Even though I'm not sure if I want to buy it because I already have the better version on the Wii U, I still feel very strange being, like, kind of negative about the fact that one of my favorite all-time games is getting this re-release. It should be a great thing to be celebrated, but given the context around it, it is kind of hard for me to be excited, and so I have to use it as a focal point of why my optimism for the rest of the year has shifted a little bit. And so what happens in November? Well, you know, obviously the best case scenario would be Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. And it is not impossible, you guys, but I feel like the chance of it happening is so minuscule, itty-bitty. If they're going to do that, they'd have to have a Nintendo Direct and confirm that game tomorrow, okay? The day after you're watching this video, they need to be like, here's a Nintendo Direct, we're going to feature Breath of the Wild 2, here's its new official name, and it's coming out November 15th or whatever date. You know, that's the big thing for November, for the holiday, for Black Friday, and to combat next-gen machines from Sony and Microsoft. That's the best case scenario that we all want, and I just think it's not going to happen. And so even if we get other great things, let's pretend we get something great like Bayonetta 3 or No More Heroes 3, the two games I'm waiting for. Let's say those games, one or both, releases in November. That is certainly great for the Switch, absolutely, but it's not really Nintendo making much of a stand, because those are third-party games. Exclusive or not, even if Nintendo is publishing Bayonetta 3, I get it, but it's still technically third-party. Maybe you could say, I think that maybe that falls under a second-party release, but the IP is third-party. Nintendo does not own that IP, okay? That's why Bayonetta 1 is on the PlayStation and Xbox consoles and why it's on PC, okay? So the IP of Bayonetta is owned by Platinum, and that is just third-party fact. The release is Nintendo's, 100%. They're paying for that release, but it's not a first-party Nintendo release just because they're publishing Bayonetta 3. And No More Heroes 3, while exclusive, isn't even published by Nintendo, to my knowledge. Maybe it is, but I'm pretty sure it's not, because the first two were published by Ubisoft in the States. So I don't really, I guess to be fair, I don't 100% know the publishing situation, but it's still, just like Bayonetta, it's third party, okay? Third party IP, third party company. Those games don't achieve what a Breath of the Wild 2, a Pikmin 4, a new Mario, an F-Zero would achieve in November for the holiday, being Nintendo's main flagpole 2020 first party release. That's what a lot of us are waiting for still. You know, Animal Crossing was great for Animal Crossing fans. Paper Mario, I'm enjoying it. We're all excited for Pikmin 3, even though it's a Wii U port. Like, you know, Xenoblade, another remaster, another port. Like, we just want Nintendo stuff for the year, right? That's what we've been waiting for all year, and they've drip-fed us a couple of decent things, absolutely, and they've also given us some Tokyo Mirage Sessions as well. Like, if you break down Nintendo's 2020, it's first party, it's literally 50-50. 3 brand new games, and 3 ports and remasters, okay? And one of the brand new games is that 51 board games classics thing, which, like, come on. I know it's fun, but those aren't Nintendo's games. Those are board games. Those existed before Nintendo came along. They just paid to publish like a version of a video game version of games that have existed for centuries, right? You know, Chinese checkers isn't Nintendo's. You know, Connect 4 isn't Nintendo's. But Animal Crossing is Nintendo's, and Paper Mario is Nintendo's. And then you get your Tokyo Mirage Sessions, your Pikmin 3, and your Xenoblade. You got your 3 ports. And so, anyway, I'm kind of just now rambling on a tangent about Nintendo's prior releases, and it just all to me boils down to why I just don't know what to expect for November. I'm still very open-minded to a huge surprise. I'm open-minded to the August Nintendo Direct. We all want to hope happens, and while it would be great to get a couple of small-tier releases in September from that Nintendo Direct, I don't expect any major bangers. And I think that it's their last opportunity in August to tell us of any big first-party Nintendo game that would come out in November. October is also a wild card because that has Pikmin 3 releasing. And so you look at all these games, you consider what the rest of the year looks like, you plop Pikmin 3, a Wii U port, right in the middle of the rest of the year, and it's like, how does it shake out? I don't know. Clearly, I had a lot of opinions. You know, I got a little bit started on this conversation in my last live stream, and I've been thinking about it, and I had more to say. Live stream isn't always the best place to do it. I like making videos and discussing it for you guys in this kind of a format, so these are just some of my thoughts and opinions. I might have come off a little bit energetic and exasperated here, and it's really not that. I think it's just that I have so many opinions about it. I was really anxious and excited to get them out to you guys, and obviously excited to hear what you guys have to say about it, because it's such a weird, unique situation. And it's still unique. 8.5 months in, things are just as weird now as they were back in February and March, man. Like, you know, this is just what we're doing, you know, with Nintendo this year. And, you know, I guess we'll just wait and see. So, you've heard my thoughts and opinions. Now I want to hear your thoughts and opinions. Please discuss what you think might be happening, how Pikmin 3 affects Nintendo's rest of the year, and any new games we might see or might not see. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review. I'll catch you next time on another video.